All right, Francis, you would agree with any sound thinking person would actually agree with the Minister for Labour and Productivity, Dr. Chris Ngige, on his standpoint of finding another means to get the federal government, to meet this demand rather than staying on strike. I've always been of the opinion that strike shouldn't be the only language. I don't believe that that's the only language the government understands. There are many other ways you could approach issues like this, issues of entitlements, not like you were begging them. These are things that you're entitled to. There are other means with which you can get government to do it. And then that's the standpoint of the Minister for Labor and Productivity at this point. And I feel it's okay to go by that standpoint, as you should get back to school whilst you're deploying other means to get the federal government precisely to, try to solve some of these issues.
Well, as far as you're talking about the Nigerian government, unless we have a government that is more attentive, that is more responsive, that is more proactive, a government that prioritizes education, which is not the case presently, going by what we've seen over the years, with different MOUs and MOAs signing to agreement with the federal government. The federal government oftentimes not meeting with its side of the bargain. And yes, in as much as one would say, okay, for the benefit of the Nigerian students who are going to be the ones to suffer, to bear the brunt of staying at home for this longer period, it would be agreeable to support ASUU and other relevant bodies to find another way to get the federal government to commit to doing what needs to be done. But then when you look at the Nigerian situation, you look at the government's body language, you look at their attitude towards the issues on ground, then you would know that probably that's more or less like the last option that ASUU has.
Yes, we know.
Remember that
Us is always strike actions are always the last option. But yes, I know it's the last option. Now we've deployed this last option for a long time, and so far the last option is not yielding much of positive impact. And don't forget that strategy you have used over time for a long time. Your opponents, get used to it, and then will not, might not necessarily, act towards that, or that might not actually be like a threat to him anymore, because you have deployed that means over the years. And as who have done this over the years, I feel the federal government are used to this language of strike, and maybe they're getting so comfortable that it doesn't move them anymore.
Yes, they're used to the strike language, but one thing they are not used to is one of the things why ASUU and the relevant bodies are being criticized now. Because as I said, this time around, we've been used to going on strike, we've been used to going on warning strikes, and then extending the strikes, and then eventually calling off the strike. But this time around, we are not going to call off the strike until our demands are met. So I believe now, if we have ASUU stand their ground and say these demands must be met before we go back, and if they don't get back until the demands are met, then the federal government is going to be able to, take them serious this time. But then, regardless of how situations play out, we still know who is going to suffer. So at this point in time, I think the Nigerian students should be looking at joining the dialogue table, joining the negotiation table, and making sure that issues such as extensions in service years, issues such as some kind of remuneration to students to cushion the effect of extra expenses that will accrue as a result of missing out within the time frame that the strike is going to last, are being well ironed out. That way you would have everybody coming out of this as a winner, from ASUU to the students' body.
Well, we're not seeing that come to play, in as much as the Minister for Education actually gave the invite and said he would welcome the students on the negotiation table to see how that works out. But it appears the Nigerian students are not, well, to a large extent, that was the end of that story, because we didn't get to hear if at all they actually got engaged on the dialogue table. What were their demands? What were their contributions? What was their own MOU or MOU, yeah, or MOA, as the case may be? So yes, we're still expecting that from Nigerian students. But as it stands, it is adequately risky to keep these students in the house as we speak now. It is very risky, considering the times that we are, considering this is an election year, come on, and we know that when it comes to struggle for power. A lot is involved. A lot of persons, it's like a do or die thing for them, and they would not stop at using any mechanism they want. We've always had issues of thuggery. We've always had issues of, ballot box snatching, in as much as the new electoral act tries to curb some of those issues. But yes, when you leave the students idle at this time, in other words, you're looking for cheerers, people who would, idle around at campaign grounds, moving and looking for, 1,000 naira fare and all of that. I don't know whether that is the situation Nigeria wants to get itself into.
Well, I will get back to finding out what exactly the political class are trying out. But regardless, I'm hoping that this time around, rather than loiter around campaign offices and campaign grounds, rather than be used as agents of destruction, the Nigerian student would be or should be able to mobilize and start and even put a stop to campaign actually happening. I think that would get the federal government's attention and get them to do the right thing for the Nigerian youths, the Nigerian academic system. But then, moving away, we have a guest standing by who is going to help us talk more on this particular issue. We'll be on for the interaction with Honorable Rex Wieme, is a public affairs analyst and a lecturer from the University of Uyo. Hello, good morning, sir.
Yeah, good morning, Francis. How are you?
Very well, thank you, sir. How are you today?
I'm fine. Thanks for talking today.
All right, sir. So today we're looking at ASUU strike, the prolonged ASUU strike, and the issues surrounding the strike. We're going to come at you from different angles. I have with me Ms. Otobasi.
Of course. Good morning, Mr. Rask.
Good morning, ma. How are you doing today?
I'm fine, thank you. Mr. Resk,
Thank you.
you are a lecturer, and we've heard the standpoint of us as a union. Let's get individual perspective from you now. What's your position towards the role of a strike? Do you feel it's about time, as you, get off it and, continue with academic activities? Or do you feel it's okay to go on with this?
So, if I may get your point, are you saying we can comfortable with strike or we should call it off?
Yes, I want to know your standpoints with regards to the current rollover strike that we're having. We first had 3 weeks and then 4 weeks and now it's 8 weeks, and we don't know the end to this. As far as we know, the association, ASUU, says they will go on with this as long as possible until the federal government meets with all their demands. What is your standpoint? Are you in support of ASUU, or do you have a different opinion to this? Hello, sir. Okay, perhaps we'll get back to him on the course of the show. But yes, Francis, I feel I was walking past the university environment yesterday, and I saw some students going in and out. I was concerned. I was like, well, ASUU is in strike. Why are students still, going to school and all of that? And I heard that I called one of them and I asked, and she said that there are other, classes that are still going on, like what's called tutorial classes organized for freshers that were supposed to start and all of that. And if they're still doing that, I feel a lot of them are being left out for those who cannot meet up with this. Some of those who don't live around perhaps a Ibom and they had to travel to their home states, they might be losing out on this. And I feel some lecturers might have the flair to go back to class, especially for those ones that are workaholics and might, so passionate about impacting lives. They might want to go back, but still bound by the decision of ASUU as a whole.
Well, like I said, that every lecturer who is passionate at heart about teaching would want to get back to the school environment. And still in the same line, every lecturer that is passionate about the teaching would want to stand and stick with ASUU. Because if you give the lecturers the right environment, you give them the right tools, you give them the right welfare package, they're going to be more passionate and more committed, and that is going to play out in the academic environment. It's going to play out in the quality of graduates that are being churned out consistently. And when you have quality education, when you have quality graduates, then the issue of having graduates who are not employable or who do not have employable skills is going to be handled. So it's like a dilemma. You have what it takes, what needs to be done, you want to do it, but then somebody who should provide the means for you to do it He's not providing it. Okay, I think at this point we have our guest back online. Hello, good morning, sir.
Yeah, I'm on.
All right, sir.
Morning.
Welcome back. Sorry for the breaking network service there. So the
Okay.
Otto was asking if you're in support of ASUU stand to continue the strike until the federal government meets with its demands, or you have a different opinion.
All right. I will discuss that in two perspectives. And the first perspective is that one, I am in support of it. On the ground that like we always make a riddle of it. After strike has become a kind of a World Cup issue where we go and occasional or periodically. You see, the problem with Nigerian education system, if you are truly a student and you know what you are looking for, you know that the education system in Nigeria is decaying. And the people that are killing it are the same people that are having issues with ASUU, the government. Now, I support the ASUU strike in the sense that what is ASUU looking for? Sometimes I got angry when we had a meeting some time ago, and I told the leadership of ASUU that we're supposed to talk about the welfare of the members. That is the lecture.
Hello, sir.
Hello, sir. Oh my goodness. Seems the network providers are not treating us fair this morning. We do hope that we do get to connect him back and get to hear his very sound opinion on the case at hand. But like he rightly said, that the welfare of the Nigerian lecturers is one of the key issues,
Of course, it has been.
that we've been talking about, and it's critical. It's critical that we take into consideration that fact. And just like he was about landing in, the fact that ASUU has consistently been on and off with the strikes since as far back 1990 something or 1992 or thereabout is an indication that they want things to change. And I think the federal government got too comfortable at some point because they know, regardless of whether we meet with ASUU's demand, they will always at some point get tired of going on strike and head back to the classroom.
Francis, the truth be told that as we speak now, is not the right time. If they wanted to, go into strengthening the academic sector as far as Nigerian educational system is concerned, I think electioneering time is not the right time to put that number of students at risk at this moment. But well, let's get back to our guest. Good morning, sir. Good to have you back.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Okay, you were talking about two perspectives in terms of
Yes.
responding to that. So
Yes.
let's conclude on that.
As I was saying, if let's say for instance the University of Rio, which I lecture,
Okay.
if you are passed through that school as a student, you get to understand, especially in the town campus by Parrot, we don't have structure, we don't have classroom. When those structures were built, we had limited number of students. But now the institution admit most students, over 200 to 300 in the class. And you don't have a classroom for the student. That's number one. And number two, the little classroom that you have, no fan, nothing. The food is so stuffy, no mic for a lecturer to use, and a whole lot of things. If you go through what we call 4950 environment, then there is another education block very close to Equal Road,
Yeah.
where you have the lecture hall there.
Okay.
Even during the exams, you'll be in the classroom and you'll be hearing right, so confusing that the noise from the outside is so much that even you as a lecturer cannot concentrate. The student cannot concentrate, even during the exam. In that same education block, there is a building outside the school, the Icon, is it Icon House?
Okay.
Either Techno or Icon House. Now, there is a man there in that building, they play a loud sound that affects the student even during the exams. These are the things the ASUU is talking about. Provide a conducive learning environment for the students so that we can have a good output in the society. That's the major thing ASUU is talking about.
So yes,
And you
okay.
as a lecturer, you go in there and stretch your voice, you shout, you scream on top of your for students to hear. And even at that, the distraction is so much in the afternoon, the environment will be so hot, and a whole lot of things like that. So it becomes a punishment health-wise to both the student and the lecturer. So, and these are the things actually saying that please provide us with a good structure, a good learning environment so that both the student and the lecturer can move in there and do their business peacefully and leave.
Well,
That's number one.
in line with
Number
that,
two.
do you think, okay, number two?
Number two is about the salary of lecturers. In the entire world, I don't really have the statistics now, but I will tell you, in the entire world, Nigerian lecturers are the least paid. Taking, for instance, like in the university, even with Akwa Ibom State here, you know, in ASUU, Akwa Ibom State Polytechnic, College of Education, and far more than lecturers in the University of ASUU.
Hello,
and
sir.
You know the kind of environment that we are now, we all buy from the same market. How do you want a
Hello?
lecturer to survive? Somebody with MSc is earning about
Okay,
114,000
I
naira.
think we'll still have to try and reconnect with our
A
guests. It's
professor,
phone morning. I must stay with the
a senior
network
lecturer
subscribers.
earn about 333,000 naira.
Okay.
And then you now bring in IPPIS and even cut down the money from what they used to earn.
Okay, so I think we're still having issues with the network today. I do hope that we finally get to be consistent with talking with our guest. But quite some issues he has raised there with the University of Rio, for instance. I know of that right now. Right outside the university environment, we've seen lots of business buildings springing up, and most of these business buildings are characterized by loud music and stuffs like that, which is definitely not very conducive for the learning environment.
And that is specific to University of Uyo, I must say, because it is located right in the heart of the town. And regardless, they've had a permanent site where, the government had, kept for them. And over time, I know a lot of departments are moving gradually. It might take a longer while or perhaps a shorter time, depending on how they do it, to get all departments moved from the town campus to the main campus. But I feel that is specific to University of Uyo. It's also something of immense concern, having a school, high-rise business centers around school, like you talked about it, Warren. I wonder how you'll be in classroom and you're just hearing Warren, and I know that. But it's comical, but it calls for concern. Okay, our guest is back on. Good morning, and I hope we stay online this time for a long time.
Yeah, thank you.
All
So,
right.
as I was saying, still on infrastructure. If you go to some department, particularly in education, faculty of education, you can take a walk to that environment, faculty of education, University of Uyo, take a walk there and look at the offices of lecturers. You see a very small room of, let me say, 10 by 5 by 5 or whatever I can call it. Then you have 2 senior lecturers in that small thing, in fact, a store that you call office, with their tables, with booths, with file cabinets, everything. You don't even have space. And most times, you don't even have light. How can a lecturer sit down there and conduct a research? Just take a walk there. Go and see things by yourself. I'm telling you a practical thing that you can go in there and examine by yourself with photographs. How can a lecturer be productive in that kind of a place? Now, a lecturer also talk about sponsoring, because for you to be promoted, you need to write a certain number of papers. For instance, for you to move from lecturer 1 to senior lecturer, you need a minimum of 7 publications. And this publication must be both locally and internationally. And international papers to publish now, we pay in dollars. And you know the exchange rate now. And this money comes out from the meager salary that we are paid. No assistance from the government or even the school. You can get the facts anywhere. So, and it's compulsory for you to get this publication for you to be promoted. Otherwise, they said you are not productive. For you to be an associate professor or a professor, you need to be 15 and 25 publications with textbooks. And most of them must be international publications. with conferences, an international conference. This conference you also attend with your meager salary, no support from the government. And you have to do these things if you want to grow in the system. And you still take this small salary to pay for those things and all that. So the ASUU is now saying that those peculiar things should be taken care of, or they should be supported by the government. Instead of them to use their salary because of the time that we are in now. Now, I leave that. That's the first perspective we're talking about, infrastructure and other issues that have to do with the salaries. I've talked about that. Now, come back to the student. We are not happy. I am a student also. I'm doing my PhD in Peace of Nigeria and Soka. As I'm talking to you now, I'm supposed to round up my program and get my PhD.
Mm.
But this strike has affected us from 2020. We have a pocket of it last year, and this other one again. As a matter of fact, the league are supposed to travel to be my supervisor to schedule me for proposal was the way we started the strike. And it affected me too. It's not only the student, because we lecturers, we go for training for higher degrees, which is demanded of us from the system if you want to grow. So I think the students are supposed to do a 4 years program and you end up having 6-7 years program. It's not funny. And we lecturers are supposed to have the PhD. If you have a PhD as a lecturer, there are certain levels, there are certain things you do. There are certain, as I'm talking to you, I cannot attend my departmental board meeting or PG meeting in my department because I don't have PhD. Well, that's what they call PG board. Yeah. I can attend such meetings. But when you have a PhD, you attend and also make a decision that affects both undergraduate and postgraduate.
Okay,
and the system, the education system in Nigeria is delaying me from having that degree. So it affects some of us who are lecturers that are on training too.
Okay, sir, permit me to cut you there. You know, you could go on and on with a lot of these issues that are staring us in the face. And of course, these are not myths. These are things that can easily be related with as far as the education in Nigeria, tertiary education in Nigeria is concerned. But sir, my point of view is, do you think ASUU should go on with this endless strike as it's going on to make a statement to the federal government? Or do you feel as an individual that perhaps they could deploy other means while academic activities continue?
All right. Now, one, I support the strike to go on only if the federal government will understand the situation on ground and solve the problem once and for all, even if the strike will take 1 year. But if there's a mechanism to resolve this problem once and for all, I support the strike to go on. But on the other way around, if the government will see to the issue with the kid deals, without attending to them, then I would say, well, we should continue to suffer and be smiling as well. So ASUU should call off the strike because they affect me too. If the federal government, the ASUU leadership knows very well that the federal government are not ready, they are not even prepared to do what they want, then they should let it go. Call off the strike, let the students, anything they feel, graduate and go out and we continue to produce whatever things produce into the society. But if there is any genuine arrangement that the federal government will attend to these issues and resolve it once and for all, in my opinion, I would have said, okay, let us delay and solve this problem once and for all. But if not, the strike should be called off. Let us go back, and that's the way we find ourselves, and let's continue with it.
Okay, sir. At this point, I want to take you from the angle of the Nigerian Student Union body. Recall that NANS came out to say that they're going to embark on a nationwide protest that might be likened to what we saw during the 2020 NSAS protest, in order to drive home a point and ensure that the federal government and ASUU and other relevant bodies come to some level of agreement that will, you know, revitalize the academic environment. Do you think at this point, speaking from a student point of view and from an analyst point of view, that the Nigerian students are doing enough to ensure that the academic environment becomes what it should be?
Well, I would say that you guys are not doing anything as far as I'm concerned. You see, the kind of political system that we have now is that we don't really have a very good activist again. What we have now are jobbers what I could call jobbers. That once they will go in for a meeting and they are given a peanut, then that's the end of that meeting. When they had a meeting with the Minister for Education, they make a point that their students they provoke demand from, you have the video and all that. Then to me, I feel when the Minister of Education walked out of them, they would have gone to Senate. They would have even make an attempt to go to ASUU, go to important places, make in fact occupy what they did in 2012. They would have brought them back, occupied Nigeria. Make sure that they crumble activities in those places as a student. In those days, government used to be so much afraid of students. Whenever students want to be a protest, government is so much afraid and run and make sure that they do everything they're supposed to do. But you see, I see the now as sleeping. They don't do anything. I've not seen a very strong agitation to ensure that this issue is resolved. They have not done anything. You see the right on newspaper, we are going to this, we are going to do this, but no tangible action to match their words. So as far as I'm concerned, none are not doing anything to salvage the situation. I've not seen anything they have done. No good activity that stand up and crumble this country until their demands are met.
Okay, sir. Well, I'm concerned with some of the demands of ASUU. One is revitalization, which of course, like you have mentioned, based on first-hand information, the current situation in different universities with specifics to University of ASUU. And the government have responded in a little bit to that effect. About some 3 billion naira thereabout has been, disbursed for that revitalization. Do you think that is enough, to maybe succor the situation a little bit and get the lecturers to get back to school? Hello, Mr. Rex.
Okay, so it's quite an amazing morning, but he's raised a lot of issues that bothers not only on the students but also on the lecturers, and these are all burning issues. And like he had said, that he would support a situation where we have this issue between ASUU and the federal government, and all the issues, burning issues, being sorted out once and for all.
That
And
was
even
well
if it
said.
means getting the strike to be prolonged for as much as it can get, that he would be in support of that. And that gives credence to what we had talked about earlier, that Nigerian parents, Nigerian students, everybody at this point in time is tired of incessant ASUU strike. Every time you'd hear ASUU strike, a student that was meant to do a 4 years course end up doing 8 years. Somebody that was supposed to do a 5 years course would stay in school for over 10 years. So it becomes a lot of problem, it becomes a lot of challenges that needs to be addressed once and for all. And I think, like I said, I would re-echo that I believe that the federal government got so comfortable over time. And like he rightly mentioned, there was a time in this country when the government was afraid of the Nigerian student because of the population, because of the fact that they were mainly youth. But today we have youths, we have the Nigerian Union Body, and regardless of the comments and the statement that have come from Mr. Sunday, we are yet to see a marching action that will make the federal government know that yes, the future belongs to the youths, and these youths have taken the responsibility to take actions that will give to them and the incoming generation what they deserve. I probably feel because of the inaction is why you'd have government officials come out to say Nigerian youths are lazy, Nigerian youths are unproductive, Nigerian youths are not ready for leadership, because these are things that we should do to let the government know that we are ready to take the mantle of leadership, to take responsibility for our actions and ensure that what needs to be done is done, and properly done, and promptly done too.
Francis, exactly my point of view. You know that our guest has mentioned quite vital points. What would it grant? What would it profit us if after these rollovers, the many rollovers of strike, and they still get back to find the same situation that they left without any proper or any meaningful development in that regard. It will be very awful after the long waste of time, after the prolonged strike, that federal government might not necessarily meet those demands, and at the end they will get back to classrooms to still meet the same situation that they left. I feel it's about time ASUU begins to use their tongue to count their teeth. They should know critically, will federal government actually be able to meet these demands at this particular time, or should elections in Nigeria be suspended? Because as it is, the budget for 2022 was long done in 2021, and that it was signed by the president. And what is being done at the moment is, with due regards to, with due reference to the budget, not much in session is being done. I know there might be some appropriation or some new budgets, or what's it called, but then it will not reflect the entirety of the demands of ASUU. So if they begin to count their eggs now before looking at the chickens, I think it will save them a whole lot of good for them to assess the chances of having all these demands met. And if they see that the chances are not there, then they get over with the strike and manage the situation as it is, while still hoping for better days for educational system in Nigeria. And then, yes, he said that, and I completely agree with him on that.
Well, we're going to get back to that line of thought, and I'll give you my opinion on what I feel. But at this point in time, I think we'll get back to our guest. Hello, good morning, sir.
Yeah, I'm still with you.
Okay, sir. So, so far you've made some very vital points about the need for ASUU to, put its feet down and understand whether or not the federal government will give to ASUU what it needs for the revitalization of the academic environment. You've also mentioned the fact that this strike affects not just the student body, but also lecturers who are, by the obligations of their job, demanded to keep advancing, keep learning, and keep growing in the job. Now, my question is, at this point in time where no one really know where the strike is going to end, and nobody can really tell if the federal government will wake up to its responsibility and give to ASUU what the ASUU needs. What would be your advice to students who, by this strike, are being forced to stay at home, and especially considering the fact that electioneering period is around the corner, and we've had stories of the politicians utilizing youths as talks, as political touts, and all of that?
All right, my advice, first of all, let me start from the later, is that if just that because of the economy, the environment that we're in now, everybody is camping for money to survive. If I were to be anything to advise the students or have a larger audience, I will have said, okay, fine. First of all, when they comes around, then you protest by refusing whatever thing they ask you to do. By then, they will know that you guys are serious. That's number one. Number two, since we cannot help, I would say for now, even that once you enter school, before you graduate, think of what you can do to help yourself and then go for a job. And they tell the student, you only enter here, you know when you enter, you know when you graduate. So I continue with that to say that every student that are active now should think of learning a skill that will help them tomorrow, whether they will graduate or not, only God knows. Whichever year they graduate, but from now, they should utilize this opportunity to look for anything they can do to help them, to sustain them. So they should not waste that period doing all kind of things that are not fruitful to them. That's my advice. Why keep praying? Because in Nigeria we pray a lot. Why keep praying that the federal government or ASUU should call off the strike, whether they attempt their demand or not, they should call off the strike and let us all continue the way we've been doing and move on. That's the situation we find ourselves. That's my advice for students.
All right. Thank you so much, sir, for giving us your time on the show. We really do appreciate your incisive contributions to the issue at hand. Thank you so much once again.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much.
All right, so do have a nice day. So, Tito, before we had to go back to our guest, now, it has gotten to a point where Nigerian youths have to take full responsibility for their action. And like our analyst had said, he doesn't believe Nigerian students have done any tangible thing, have taken the necessary action that will be able to get the leaders to think or know or believe that we are ready, and that if you do not settle these guys, then nothing is going to work in the country. Now,
Well,
if we do not have such actions coming, I also believe that we are not going to have the change that we need. You know, let's
no,
forget that
the change that we need, yes, I know all hands must be on deck, but to a large extent depends on the leaders at hand. Yes, the leaders we have controls, they know the right thing to be done. They only lack the willpower, the political will, and the sympathy. If they actually have the love for this country and they hold this country dear, and they even know or understand the pledge or the national anthem of this country with which they serve, then it will be quite easy. You would not need, like, okay, if perhaps you're a father and then you have a child who needs to get to school and you need to give him new uniform and you've seen that his uniforms are torn. Do you need that child to cry too much before you change the uniforms for him? No. It simply needs a father who is attentive and, up to his responsibilities to know that, yes, this boy needs a new uniform. This old uniform is torn and it's about time I changed it. So yes, we don't need Nigerian students to go all higher wire and all of that, trying to protest, a protest that might most likely be hijacked by people they call hoodlums, and I don't know the unknown hoodlums who they really are and who implants them into peaceful protests. That every peaceful protest in this country is always being hijacked by hoodlums. But then it wouldn't get to that point if every leader at different spheres in this country is responsible to its actions or is responsive to the demands or really understands the reason it was elected to such office. I mean, why would we allocate money for infrastructural development? We allot money for revamping of agricultural sector, and then education still needs. Okay, which farmer strikes to get grants for farming?
Nobody does that. So now,
So why do we need academic staff union to incessantly be on strike before they get a desk change in the tertiary institution, before they get a proper structure for a functional department and all of that? I mean, it's insane. It's completely absurd.
Now, you would understand that it is insane, like you've rightly said. It is insane. It is absurd. It is appalling. It is a very excruciatingly painful situation to wake up and know that the leaders you elected into office do not take you for anything, and then that priority that ought to have been given to things that deserves and desire that priority are not being given. Now, I'll take it from two angles. You don't have farmers strike because persons are benefiting from giving to the farmers. Perhaps, as Osodeke would say, that the only reason, and like our analyst has also said, that the only reason, or perhaps one of the reasons we don't have the federal government coming to give to ASUU what ASUU demands is because there is nobody within the government who is probably going to benefit from the money that's going to be allocated to ASUU. So at this point in time, we might be all tempted to toe that line, because possibly if there was somebody who's going to benefit at the end of the day, the government would have allocated that contract, knowing that XYZ within the government coffers is going to benefit from it.
If they so want to benefit from ASUU, yes, let them bring in the companies, because at the time when this money is disbursed and ASUU wants to award contracts for structures, really, it will still be awarded to individuals. So if you're a sitting minister and you get the contract now, oh yeah, do the contract and get paid.
Now,
so
that is another issue, because it's not going to be business as usual. If they are afraid, it therefore should tell you that they know if this money gets to ASUU and the contracts get dished out, it's not going to just be dished out to somebody who is going to have the contract abandoned without providing the things that he was contracted to provide for the academic environment. And when they know that at the end of the day, ASUU is going to come after them, the students are going to come after them, they know it is better to prevent releasing that money than releasing it to the coffers of the ASUU.
Regardless of who benefits or not, I feel if the federal government has the money at hand, they should release this money. And quite frankly, a lot of persons don't believe the federal government is not capable to meeting the demands of ASUU at this very point. So it's about time they get it. They just come to that realization that yes, it's about time we invest massively in education and change the narrative already, so that we can accommodate more international students.
It's about time the change comes, but that change, I bet you, like a lot of Nigerians would say, is not going to come until the Nigerian students get more responsible until there is a collaborative effort between the Nigerian students and the ASUU and other relevant bodies, including Parent Teachers Association of Nigeria, to demand an end to the incessant strike, to demand that federal government will settle ASUU, settle the academic sector. Now, take your mind back to what the guest has said about the fact that we don't have activists anymore in this country. I recall that the likes of Professor Wole Soyinka, saying that back in his days in the universities, when there was a situation that needed to be handled, for instance, when food fares were increased, when there was insecurity on campuses, and they had to strike to make sure that they drive home the point, they get security on campus, they get the food fare reduced to what it used to be, they had to strike. And when they strike, united together with a united front, they had government coming out, and everything had to be sorted out.
That is a responsive government.
Now it is time. The responsive government was held accountable by the student. Now, if you trace down the history, you recall that all of the government we used to have, they had their own issues, just like we have with the present federal government. They were not as responsive, just like the federal government is. But when they came to realize that these guys were not jokers, these guys were serious, and they were in the business of making sure that you deliver to them what is their due, they came to understand that fact, and they delivered. So when we now have student union body who, like I guess would say, are jobbers who are only interested in getting their money and then or getting a little chunk of the national cake and then abandoning the cause that was meant to better the life of the greater Nigerian people, that is still what we are going to get. So at this point, it is for us to, put aside the selfish interest and make as priority the overall interest of the Nigerian student.
Well, I feel with responsible leadership in place, it will not need Nigerian students to go higher wire. But yes, if they have to, perhaps if that's the only way, we're already talking about ending strikes so that we could find other possible ways to get the leaders to respond to these issues. And then you're talking about bringing in Nigerian students into the picture. It could go on and on and on, and I hope it doesn't lead to what would call hijacked protests. But yes, I feel it's about time as to get on board with the federal government, sort out these things. If you need to get back to class, yes, like our guest has said, it's time to get back to class, and whilst you're praying, because we are prayerful people.